everyone. I'm so glad that you're able to join me today as I talk about how we can use Pear Deck in the classroom. And my goal is to really talk about how we can check in with all of our students on a personal level to get a more holistic sense of how our students are doing and to empower all the learners in our classroom to share their ideas and build their confidence. And I'll also be taking you through kind of how I set up my classroom and use Pear Deck when we are face to face. If you don't know me already, my name is Stacey Roshan. I am the Director of Innovation and Educational Technology at my school, and I'm also the author of Tech with Heart. If you are on Twitter, please do follow me there. I'm at BuddyXO. I'd love to interact with you and chat out more strategies there. And I also have a website, techiemusings.com, if you are looking for any additional resources. So we have to start with a warm-up because that's what I do in the classroom. And while you won't be able to join my Pear Deck live with me today, you can do a little check-in with yourself or tweet out an answer or just join in on the YouTube chat. So let's go ahead and get started with a quick check-in. Personally, I'm doing great. I'm so pumped to be sharing and learning with you all at Pear Fair PD. If you want to tweet with us, use that Pear Fair PD hashtag and maybe tag me so that I can say hi. Moving on, what are you hoping to learn today? Again, I won't be able to customize my talk based on the responses here, which is usually a big goal of mine when I ask this type of question. But I think it's still worth asking so you can do a little self-check-in so that you can get the most out of today's session. When I do yoga, for example, I typically start by setting an intention for my practice. And that simple act can really transform our experience and what we gain from the time we spend on our yoga mat. So I hope by starting with this question to you today, it can help you connect with the session and maximize what you will walk away with. Now, if you know me, you know that I love Pear Deck. And one of the biggest reasons that using Pear Deck has transformed my classroom is that it allows me to check in with my students on a personal level, again, to get that holistic sense of how each student is doing, to empower all learners to share their ideas and build their confidence. It encourages students to see mistakes as part of the learning process and foster some really powerful peer-to-peer learning. I hope that throughout my session today, you'll see how I've been able to use Pear Deck to achieve these goals. The first thing I want to emphasize is the ability to provide all students a safe space to share their thoughts and ideas. In a snapshot, we can see what the whole class is thinking. And with Pear Deck, names are not attached, so we can talk about the various responses without calling any one individual student out. And I think that is really powerful. Speaking as an introvert and as a person who needs time to process before responding, I have felt unable to make my voice heard. We live in a culture where too often we give weight to the ideas of those who are the most vocal and quick to have something to add. In using Pear Deck, I've been able to shift this in my classroom by providing a platform for all the different types of voices and learners in my classroom to respond in a format that is best for them, and for us to be able to celebrate all the different ideas that are coming in instead of just calling on a couple of students. For me, as a math teacher, a real game changer was pairing up Pear Deck with a Wacom tablet in my classroom. I actually have a class set of Wacom tablets, which I got back in 2013, and students plug that tablet into the laptop that they're already bringing to class. And when they have the ability to write with an actual pen, that's really transformed what I've been able to do with my upper level math classes. Now, one of my favorite things about using Pear Deck here is that I can see students responding in real time. This gives me so much insight into how students are thinking through problems. Maybe a student is having trouble getting started, or getting stuck in the middle when doing the algebraic manipulation. Through my teacher dashboard, I can get some pretty awesome insight into individual student needs. And that's Buddy in the background walking around. I can't stop him. I've tried a couple times. We're going to just roll with it. So again, just that real-time insight into what students are doing has been a game changer. After everyone has had a chance to respond, I can then show actual student responses on the projector to put the focus on student work. And this is where we really start the discussion. For some students who are more vocal, the moment they get to raise their hand and start talking out some of what they see projected on the board is when I'll hear their best work. But now we're truly able to discuss what everyone in the room is thinking. I can anonymously draw attention to an incorrect response so that we can analyze the mistakes as a class together and strengthen our problem-solving skills. We can do a side-by-side comparison of two different ways of approaching the problem to draw attention to the fact that there are multiple ways to approach a problem and help students get past what is sometimes black and white thinking in terms of there being a right and a wrong way to do a math problem. I think it's so important to remember that it isn't just about the quieter students missing out when we rely on only one form of participation. The reality is that everyone loses when we don't hear from all voices. To me, that's the true beauty of meaningful tech integration. We can so easily provide platforms for all students to contribute. And then the class can see all of that work projected on the board or in their little online chat. And again, get the perspective of so many different students on the same problem. So now let's look at some strategies I use for running a Pear Deck in my classroom. First off, I pretty much always log into the Pear Deck alongside students. I simply open up another window or tab and I log into the Pear Deck the same way my students are. Yes, you can be logged into Pear Deck as both a teacher and a student at the same time with the same account. So this is a pretty magical little hack. Given the fact that this pretty much is how I run all my Pear Decks, I want to slow it down for a minute and give you a real demo of exactly what I mean so you understand how powerful this joining as a student is. So first off, let me just reemphasize, you can log into Pear Deck as both a teacher and a student at the same time from the same email account. Personally, I use the draw question type on any of the slides that I want to ink up during class instruction. So say that I have this slide right here. It's just an informational type slide, but I might want to mark it up. What I would do is, let me go ahead and open up my Pear Deck add-on, and then make sure that you make this a drawing type slide. As you know, that adds the bottom bar. Now, sometimes that covers some of the material that I have. One little hack there is that you can move the bottom bar off of the slide and it still is a drawing type slide. You just can't delete the bottom bar, but it doesn't actually have to live on top of the slide. So I just move it off of the slide area, just like that. So it's kind of underneath. And then at the end of the activity, publishing the takeaways, we'll talk about that later. At this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the lesson and show you how I joined as a student. So if I start this lesson right now, let's say that we are in instructor paced, we're all together. Then of course, this is the projector view. I'm going to be waiting for the students. If we're in the classroom, they're probably just typing in this code. Now what I do is I click this little link, give students a link, so it copies the join link to my clipboard. And then all I do is I open up a new tab, paste in that link, and now, as you can see, I'm joining just like a student. So right now, I'm joined as the teacher in this tab, can start class, and I'm logged in as a student over on this tab. So let me go to the teacher tab. Let's go over to that slide that I was on. So we're right here. So maybe I'm presenting this in class and I'm at the point where now I want to be able to mark it up. Then I just go over to my student tab. And now I have all the annotation tools. So at this point, maybe I'm reading this passage along with my students. Let's go ahead and highlight. So maybe I want to emphasize that you can log into the Pear Deck as both a teacher and a student at the same time from the same email account. And so, I could read it, mark it up with them so that I can use this more instructionally and just point things out as I'm talking, or I could do, of course, my math instruction. So again, my key here is that here's my teacher dashboard where I'm kind of toggling students through as you normally would, as you would normally show the responses and hide the responses. The key is that you grab the link, so I could grab it again, give the students a link, and that same link that you're giving students, you actually open up another tab and you just paste it in. Don't need to be logged in with a different email account, so don't worry about anything. You got the teacher tab and the student tab, and you just have to be toggling back and forth. But again, that's what I do. It's become super natural for me, and it works so well. And then again, at the end of the lesson, I'm going to be able to publish the takeaways to share my annotated notes with the class, and I'll talk a lot more about that in a second. Personally, I use Pear Deck for both the engagement piece I was talking about and for instruction, which is what I'm going to get into next. I rely pretty heavily on the drawing slide type paired with my Wacom tablet for that instructional piece, which I'm going to demo for you in just a moment. The real beauty of having everything in one Pear Deck is that all my notes are saved in one spot when I publish the takeaways at the end of the lesson. I can then post the takeaways as annotated notes for students who are absent, for those who have accommodations. I'm providing them with what they need, and it's just embedded into how we do class. And it's also a great reference for me and for my whole teaching team. If we have time, I'll come back and talk about how I use the same type of idea to publish an answer key for students to self-correct student-paced Pear Deck activities. But I first want to focus on the instructor-paced Pear Decks that we're doing together in class. Before we dive into one of my lessons, a quick reminder of the power of the new prompt button. Sometimes you forget to add drawing to a slide, or maybe you just need extra space to have a side discussion that has come up on the fly. That is where this new prompt button really comes in. So whenever you are in instructor-paced mode, you can just press this new prompt button and you can select. So I really like going to this third screen right here, because on that screen, you can add a question to the slide you're already on. So say you have a slide, you forgot to add drawing to it, you can just choose drawing, and then you will have the ability to draw on the slide. It just adds another slide actually to your presentation. So it just adds that on to what you already had. Say that you just need a quick whiteboard. I can again go into new prompt. And then on the second page here, you'll see that I just have this blank whiteboard. And so I can do that also, so that I, again, can just have a little bit of space to maybe draw something out, to talk students through something. And again, when I publish these takeaways at the end, this has added an extra slide into my presentation. So it is saving it. It's not just something you ask on the fly and then it disappears and goes away. No, it's actually documented. And so that's really powerful too. All right, so now let's dive into what an actual lesson would look like in my AP Calculus class. I recorded this demo at a different time. So let's cue the outfit change. In this one, I'm going to log in as a student so you can see how I use it for instruction. So I log in as a student. My first slide, oftentimes I've set this up so that I have my agenda as a Google Doc. So I make this a website style slide so that I have my agenda right there. We can start class with the agenda. Then we move on. And in this particular one, students had just taken a test, so I give them an opportunity to type some reflections so they can go ahead and just type their thoughts there. Easy for them to do. on their laptop. Then I'm asking just a general question in this one. Go ahead and talk about a win. I love to ask students how they're doing before class starts. So start with something a little bit non-calculus specific before we dive into the calculus, just to make sure they're good. And then in this particular one, I asked them what's on their mind, if they had any questions to start, so that I was sure that I was addressing their needs for the day. After that, we dive into a little bit of a warm-up. So this is a draggable question type. So students would just drag the dot to answer the question. Then we could talk about that as a class, and I would showcase the responses on the board and talk about it. But again, I'm just taking you through my slides today and kind of my thinking. So then we do a warm-up, and again, this is one, because students have a tablet, they're able to write out their answer to this on the actual Pear Deck. But if you didn't have tablets, you might just have them write their final answer with the mouse or get them some multiple choice options. You would have to structure it a little bit differently than I have. But what I want to show you is that from there, after I have students do some warm up, I actually dive into a lesson portion of class where, even though this is a Pear Deck that all students have joined, I'm just writing at this point. So this is a slide where only I'm going to be writing, and students would just watch me write, but I like to keep everything in one place. So I want this all stored in one Pear Deck. So instead of turning their attention back to a whiteboard or a different application, I do it all in Pear Deck. So I ask students, just watch me. They don't write during this. If they want to write and take notes at the same time as me, that's their option. However, I really focus on using Pear Deck as a teacher in this moment. So again, you have to be logged in as a student to have the writing tools, because logged in as a teacher, it looks like this screen right here. So you don't have all of those drawing tool options. So that's why you have to be logged in as a student. And at this point, then I can just draw and we can have a class conversation. So that's where we really talk about, I ask them, kind of help me identify what the A plus H in this case might be. Students would know what I'm talking about, and I can draw and talk at the same time. And I think that is so powerful, that ability to draw and talk and use just very simple tools here to kind of point, talk, and make sure that students are following what we're saying. So as they're doing that and they're talking me through what they want me to write next, I can be writing that down as they're telling me what they're looking at. And so that is how I use Pear Deck for both instruction and interaction at the same time. I'm going to show you the benefit of keeping it all in this one Pear Deck as we go on too. So just to take you through a couple more slides, you'll see that this is a discussion one because a lot of students had missed this on their homework. So I want to make sure that we do this as a class. I've set this up so I have the question, I have the graph so that we can talk about it. And again, I can be writing and talking at the same time. Huge power there. And that's what I really need, my Wacom tablet combined with the power of Pear Deck's drawing tool. So I'm going to just be going over in this lesson. I just went over a bunch of questions that students had. And then we dive into a little bit of a trig review. So again, a little bit more instruction. And then at this point, I'm going to turn it back to students and say it's your turn. So at this point, again, if students didn't have the tablets, you could have them solve it on their piece of paper, and then we bring it to the board after everybody's had a chance to try the problem on their own. But I like to kind of give them that little exit ticket, allow them to try it before they go into group work for the day. And then I have some closing reminders here for what's coming up next. Just make sure that I mention that. Then I ask them at the end, how'd the lesson go? So I'm sure if anybody has a thumbs down, if they've dragged their dot over here, that I'm going to follow up with them immediately and make sure that they're doing okay as we dive into the lesson. Anything else, I like to leave some space so students can communicate with me in the Pear Deck. Some of them do that, and others of them just wait till the Pear Deck's over and then they raise their hand. Again, how do we provide forums for all students to communicate what they need with us? This is a great tool to do that. And then I usually just end with the agenda that I had shown at the beginning to make sure that I didn't forget anything, because if I don't write it down, often there's so much going on that I might forget something. So I like to end with that agenda also. All right, so let's turn back to my slides. Now, I said that there is a reason I like to keep everything in one spot. And a big part of that is so that I can publish the takeaways, and that will include the warm up, the instructional part of the lesson, and whatever reflection or exit ticket we might have done. Not only can I post my version, students also get their own copy of what they've written. And the takeaways include a space for students to take notes or write down reflections. Prior to an assessment, I actually have students turn in about 2 of their takeaways from the unit because I want to get them into that habit of looking over prior work and taking note of how their thinking has grown, maybe some mental notes that they had forgotten about, and all that good stuff. Having them go back through the takeaways and jot down some quick notes is such an easy way to encourage this type of reflection and to help them build better and stronger study habits. Okay, so let's dig a little bit more into that idea of using the takeaways as an answer key for self-paced Pear Decks. So what I like to do sometimes is assign a Pear Deck for students to do in self-paced mode, either in class or for homework. And what I do is I do the Pear Deck first. So I do the whole thing on my own. Basically, I launch a Pear Deck, then I log into the Pear Deck as a student. Go ahead and copy the link here and then open up another tab. And now I'm logged in as a student. I complete it, just pretending I was a student, write in all my answers, and then I end the session and publish the takeaways. Now, the only person who was in that session was me, myself, and I save that. Then I have all my students do the self-paced Pear Deck. So I launch a different session. Okay. So I launch a separate session for students to now do. They complete the activity. They all turn it in. The next phase of the activity is self-reflection. So after I close the Pear Deck, then I give them the answer key. And that answer key is the takeaways that I had saved for myself. Now I give them the share link, and then they're able to view my answers, compare that to their own takeaways. At that moment, they self-correct. So they make any corrections just in the notes in their takeaways that they have so that they can self-correct. You can also reopen the Pear Deck itself so that students can revise the Pear Deck right in the Pear Deck itself. It depends on kind of how you want to see things. If you want to see what they did originally versus the revisions they made, then it's great to publish the takeaways. But if you just want to grade one thing, you can just reopen that Pear Deck session so that they can make corrections on the Pear Deck. You didn't even need to close it in the first place. Now, the reason I like to do this is, first of all, it saves a lot of time for me, a lot of grading time, because I'm having students do that first level of check. I'm not grading their work until they have self-corrected their work, until they have made any revisions. They're also learning so much in that process of making the revisions on their own. They're doing that self-check, that self-assessment. So I do guide students through this, but this has been a really fantastic way for me to give assignments. Again, the first phase is that they try it on their own. Then I give them that answer key that I had made as the second phase. They go through and make any revisions. And then only after they've made the revisions do I give them a final grade. So it makes things much more efficient for me because they've already had time to self-correct. And I'm also putting more ownership on the student for them to kind of take charge for their learning. And I write my answer key in great detail so students can learn from that. So if they were stuck on something originally, now they can get themselves unstuck. Again, like, how do we provide resources for students to truly be resourceful in their learning? I think this has been one of the ways that I've really been able to do that. So again, this is more of a self-paced Pear Deck that we might do in the classroom or for students to do at home for homework. As we wrap up our time together today, I want to end with a quote that I start my book with. How can we shift from a first is best culture to one that sends the message that everyone's voice matters and that everyone has the potential to excel in the classroom? I hope that this talk has sparked some ideas for how you will continue to leverage technology to provide a variety of platforms for students to share their ideas. Now, the final thing, let's do a little bit of a wrap up and an exit ticket. Of course, I need to give you a moment for reflection here. So let's close with a couple of prompts. Again, you can just do a self check here, but if you want to tweet with us, please use the hashtag PearFairPD and you can tag me. You can also chime in on the YouTube chat. So, my first question is, what was a standout moment from this webinar? And now I'm going to take a little bit of a longer pause to allow you to reflect forward. Don't leave yet, though, because Wacom has generously provided some promo codes for anyone who is interested in a Wacom tablet like I use both for my class and for myself personally. So I'll pause for about 2 minutes here, and then I'll get into some details about what tablet I use and then also the promotion. Okay, so let me just give you a little bit of background about the different types of tablets that Wacom has. So first of all, there's the pen tablet, and that is the blank slate style tablet. So I have two of them with me right now. So this is the one by Wacom, the one with the red backing, and this is their newest product. This is the small size of it, which I love for its portability. There's just one plug that you plug in to your laptop or your computer. And this is Chromebook compatible, works with a PC, works with a Mac, and it's a great solution. If I was getting a class set of Wacom tablets, this is absolutely what I would be getting. Now, it is a blank slate style, so you have to look up at your screen to be writing. It is something that I find that you get used to. There's a little bit of a learning curve, but it's been great for me and my students. This is exactly what we use. Well, we used Wacom Intuos because this wasn't released yet, but this has the lowest price point, and this is absolutely what I would get as a class set. You can rotate them around your class and everybody can use them. The other type of a pen tablet is the Wacom Intuos. Again, this is a small size. It does come in a larger size also. I like the small one for its portability. And what's nice about the Intuos is that there's a Bluetooth version of this. So this one you can connect via Bluetooth. You wouldn't need to plug it in. So if you want to be able to walk around the classroom, this is a great solution because you can walk around the classroom wirelessly. Again, you would need to be looking up at your projector because this is just a blank slate, but the handwriting on it is unmatched. It is fantastic. It feels so natural. It feels so great to write. So this is a great solution. And this is what I use in my classroom if I want to be able to walk around. Now, the last one is the one that I was using in my demo, and that is the Wacom One. And so I'm going to hold it up unplugged right now so that it's easier to hold up. But this one does need to be wired and it needs to be plugged into a wall too. And you can see it is much, much bigger. So this is like the size of a laptop screen, 13 inches. And it's also a display style tablet. So it works as a second display. And so that's really beautiful. I have it unplugged right now, which is why you don't see it as a second display, but it's really nice. I use this to make all my flipped classroom videos. You just need to be plugged in. So if you can be plugged in your classroom, that is what I would get. It's of course more expensive, but again, it's something that's going to last years and years and years, and you can plug it in and use it with whatever you're already using. So that's why I love it. And again, the handwriting experience is really unmatched. I don't just use it for my Pear Deck. I use it to create video lessons. I use it for all of my lesson planning because I just write everything electronically so that then it's searchable. If you're using the right tools, you have OCR recognition, which searches through handwriting. So I have all of my lesson plans, all documented, all searchable, all accessible anywhere. And I use my Wacom tablet to be able to handwrite. So let's get into that promo code. So this promo code is actually valid until the end of the year. You do need to buy it from the B&H store, and you would just use promo code Wacom Stacey, and you can get $50 off the Wacom One, which is that display style one that I was showing, $15 off the small Intuos with Bluetooth, or $20 off the larger one with Bluetooth. And then if you want to get the Intuos small without Bluetooth, or the one by Wacom, which is the one with the red backing, that is $10 off. So I hope this can potentially be helpful. That for me has been a big game changer. And so again, I just want to share what's worked for me in my classroom because I've played with a lot of different things over the years. It took me a long time to find the right tools that match, that work together. Now that I found it, I just want to be able to share it forward with you. I also have a lot of resources for using Pear Deck in your classroom. And so you can find all those on my website, which is techiemusings.com. If you just look at the videos and tutorials tab, there is a little sub tab that's called Tech Trainings, and you'll see on there all of my resources. These are all video tutorials on getting up and running with Pear Deck. And with that, I'm going to say thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you learned something new in this session. I hope that you were inspired. I hope that you were excited by what you saw. Again, if you want to reach out, you can reach out on my website. Through Twitter is the best. If you use Twitter, I'm at BuddyXO again. And I really am wishing everybody a really great school year ahead. Thank you so much for joining me today. Have a great rest of Pear Fair PD and your summer. Bye.